Hey guys, this is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. Got a really good Figured Out Baseball podcast for you today. We're lucky enough to be joined today by Nick Zaleski, who's the associate head coach and hitting coach at McNeese State, a Division I school in the Southland Conference in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'll give you a background on Coach Zaleski before we jump into questions with him. He is from Sugar Land, Texas. He played collegiately at Sam Houston State. While he was there, he played under Justin Hill, who was an assistant coach. Justin Hill is now the head coach at McNeese. While he was at Sam Houston State, the team won 3 conference championships. They also went to a regional in 2007, 2008, and 2009. And in 2009, Coach Zaleski set the school's single-season record for batting average, where he hit .419. That same season, he was named team MVP. He was chosen as an All-American and signed a free agent contract at the end of the season with the Toronto Blue Jays. He began his coaching career in 2013, the spring of 2013, at UTSA. That's Texas San Antonio. It's a Division I school, obviously, in San Antonio, Texas. He was there from 2013 through the spring of 2015, where he helped produce some of the best offenses in school history. In 2013, the team finished 35-25, went to an NCAA regional after winning the conference tournament. It was only the 3rd regional in school history. The team ended up leading the conference in batting average and hits that season. Then in the spring of 2016, he was hired at McNeese State, where he was hired as the hitting coach. In 2017, the team won the regular season title, finishing with an overall record of 37-20. In August of 2019, he was promoted to be the associate head coach, and he moved into the pitching coordinator role for the spring of 2020. Going back a year, they went to a regional in 2019. The team finished an overall record of 35-26. He went back to be the hitting coach this year in 2021, where they just played their first weekend. So we're in season now with Coach Zaleski early in the season. So this is really great that he's able to join us mid-season here. So Coach Zaleski, I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm happy to be on it and looking forward to it.
I typically like to start with something from the bio that stands out, and I was going to ask you about the pitching coordinator job, but you're back into the hitting coach role now. So I guess one thing I'd like to ask you about is just working with Coach Hill. So you got a chance to play under Coach Hill, and obviously he hired you at McNeese. What is your relationship like with him? What is it about Coach Hill that made you decide to come back with him and coach with him and have a chance to build the McNeese program under him?
Yeah, so playing at Sam, my freshman year, played for a different head coach than I did, an entire different staff than I did the last 3 years. And in 2007, I got to play for Coach Mark Johnson, who was at A&M for 20 some odd years before that, and in the College Baseball Hall of Fame. So I was really fortunate to play for him, and Coach Hill came along as the pitching coach that year, and did a heck of a job with our pitchers. We won 40 games, I think, that year, and really started the turnaround of that program to hopefully where it is now, being a contender every year. But being around Coach Hill for that 1 year, you kind of saw a glimpse, and even at my young age of, I think, 20 years old at the time, you kind of had a pretty good idea of this guy seems to know what he's talking about. And then he went on to have a good pitching coach career at Southeastern after that, and then ULM, and then got the head job at McNeese. And then when the opportunity came to where he offered me my first, I guess, paid job at McNeese. Everything seemed to line up. There was some familiarity with him, and he's really given me a lot of the reins to kind of do what I would like to do, and the ability to just know that you're working for a good man, and you're working for a guy that really loves the game of college baseball, and is interested in doing just about anything he can to help his team and promote the game. It really makes you feel good about going to work every day and what you're trying to do as a member of the program.
What are some things in particular, if you don't mind me asking, just that make him who he is as a coach, as a boss, as a peer? Is there anything about him in particular, about your relationship with him, that I guess makes him stand out to you as someone that you like working for, that you genuinely appreciate and enjoy spending time with?
Yeah, so I think the first thing and probably the most important thing is he's very grounded in his faith, and I think that rubs off on the rest of the program, and understanding that that's ultimately the most important thing when we get through all of this. Of obviously you want to win and you want to compete, you want to do all that stuff, and I think all of that falls in line with it. But that's definitely the most important thing, is where he's at with his faith, and it's something that I certainly try and do as well. And I think that, again, that fits through the rest of the program. But he's very fair with everything. It's the program first, and we're going to make sure that the program is taken care of. And it's just, it really boils down to anything that we can do to make the players have a better advantage, have the ability to continue to get better, both on and off the field. Anything he can do, whether it's facilities, whether it's gear, whether it's apparel, whether it's whatever, technology of things, cameras, synergy, anything. We're going to try and do everything we can to put our players in the best position to succeed, and ultimately, that leads to the program reaching new heights, which I think is, obviously a big portion of what he's been able to do, getting McNeese certainly in the national spotlight a little bit more, and certainly a contender, we'd like to think, every year in the league.
Now, this year, 2021 is 2020 and 2021 have been just different in a lot of ways than any other season that anybody that's involved in college baseball has experienced, no matter how long they've been around. COVID shortened 2020 season, and all the things that have happened to you in the Lake Charles area, Louisiana, with the hurricanes. Could you just talk a little bit about what Coach Hill's leadership has meant to the team there, and your own as well? I mean, what things that you've had to do or tried to do because of the difficulties that your kids have gone through. I think that's something that listeners of the podcast maybe would like to know a little bit more about, what your players have had to deal with there, and how the leadership between you and Coach Hill has just helped this team to get to where it is right now, where you're able to actually play a quote unquote normal spring season.
Sure. So and everyone has dealt with the effects of the pandemic, both personally with obviously super important things of people getting sick or what have you, as well as all of the economic downfall from everything that's happened with businesses being closed and other businesses just being affected by it. So I know everyone has dealt with that. And then when our guys were showing back up to school in August, I think we were there for maybe a week, and then Hurricane Laura hit, which was either a really strong Category 4 or possibly a 5 hurricane hit, and then about 6 weeks later, Delta hit, and so having 2 hurricanes in the span of 2 months really put a damper on things. And there's videos and pictures and everything that everyone can see of what happened and what it was before and what happened to it. But I think just the ability of not getting to be around each other and not being able to teach the game from a baseball perspective was a big thing. Our guys didn't show back up to Lake Charles until November. So they were gone for 2+ months, having to do school on their own at their house. Some guys went all the way back to Illinois, Arizona, Oklahoma, Kansas, certainly a bunch in Texas and other parts of the state of Louisiana. But you're talking about guys just being spread back out. And so, first thing we had to do was make sure everyone's safe and, back where they need to be and able to function properly and do everything they needed there. And then you talk about making sure school's taken care of, all of a sudden being online. And, you talk about guys that are engineers and stuff. I can't imagine having to learn that stuff online and, doing video conferences and stuff like that. So just a lot of that. And then, trusting the guys that they're going to take care of their stuff, from a physical standpoint of baseball. And then you come back in November and we got 3 weeks, and that was at a high school field, actually several high school fields. And so I think when you tabulated it all up, we've been to 12 different facilities in the last 6 months. And so our guys have done just an incredible job of being prepared, and having the ability to, they're washing their own clothes every day. They're putting bats in their cars and leaving them there, helmets, everything, of just being able to provide and move. It's a little bit of a nomadic existence right now, but a couple weeks ago we got our field back, and so that was a huge thing. And I think starting the season has been a little bit of a breath of normalcy for the guys, and I'm excited to watch them get ready to play.
It's just such a unique time for everyone, and I know that for players and for fans it was difficult. Probably I'm sure it was more difficult for the athletes, but I think there are a lot of fans of all sports, pro, college sports, that really just find some normalcy in watching sports, or maybe it's a little bit of a getaway from normal life. Like for me, it breaks up my work to be able. I put on baseball games like on a small screen, while I'm at work, and it just, I don't know, it takes me away from it for a little bit, and just it kind of helps me get through my day sometimes during the season when I can watch games. And it's, I don't know, it's just something that I'm really glad it's back. I can't imagine what it's like for your players. What were players' reactions, Nick, when they came back, when they finally got a chance to come back, maybe even in the spring, I don't know, when, or for the first time after the hurricanes or whatever, like when they came back, what kind of reactions did your players have? Like any sort of emotion or anything that your players were talking about that sort of stood out to you, like, wow, this is really something that we're back here and finally able to be together again?
Yeah, so, I don't know of a single player that I can point out that didn't in some form or fashion contribute to the rebuild of the community, whether that's they lived around here or they drove in to help do stuff, whether at a friend's house or a stranger's house. The community rebuild has been an impressive thing to watch, and so again, I don't know of a single player that didn't help contribute in some form or fashion to getting the community back to where it is right now, and the baseball team and the athletic department as a whole. But I think when they got back in November, it was almost a big sigh of relief, of like, hey, we can get back to doing kind of what we want to do. And again, the big thing of being commendable of in the time of people transferring and doing, leaving at a moment's notice, is it was really impressive to watch every single one of them come back and walk back in the door. Hopefully that's a sign of good things to come this year. And, I just think when they got back, they were excited to do baseball stuff again. Hey, let's go through pop fly communication. Let's go through cuts and relays. Let's go through throwing bullpens and taking batting practice. It was something that, they hadn't been able to do until March, except for on their own or maybe around a couple guys. But to have the whole team back out there was a lot of fun. And it's, that 3-week stretch was a blast, and we got to play some inter squads, and we got to do that. And then when we got back in January, of trying to get back into the flow of things, once we actually got to start playing on a field again, that was a lot of fun too. So I think guys are just happy to be back and doing things, that's quote unquote normal for them.
Now, you've been a hitting coach for the majority of your career. You spent one season, the shortened 2020 season, as a pitching coordinator, but the rest of your career has been working with hitters. You were obviously a very good hitter yourself in college. Just talking about hitting with your team, with your guys, Nick, what are some important things, some keys, maybe some absolutes that you feel like to coach a college team and be a successful offensive team? What are some absolutes that you want? Like what do you think are some of the building blocks of a great offense at McNeese?
So, these first three things, I guess, are probably a little bit more of an abstract. I don't know if they're physical absolutes, but the ability to just be relentless as a group. You're not going to have your A stuff every single time, and sometimes you run into a guy that's just got your number, but the ability to figure out how to just consistently apply pressure, whether that's, extra base hits, whether that's the bunt game, whether that's executing situations that come up, or the ability to work counts or take hit by pitches, just any way to be stressful is a big thing. So I think being relentless, and then The second would be adaptable. Everyone would like to line up and be in 2-0, 3-1 counts and hit fastballs and all that stuff, but that's, as you know, that's not the way the game's played very often. And so just having the ability to kind of take what's given to you, whether that's weather, whether that's the wind's blowing out, blowing in, it's cold, it's hot, all of that stuff changes the way the game is played. And so just being adaptable to whatever comes your way. And then the third thing I think is discipline. And probably the most important thing is having the discipline to stick within what you're being asked to do, and honestly what your strengths and weaknesses are as a player, and understanding that of who you are. We really try to put in a pro mindset and model of having the individual start to learn what they want to do and what they're capable of doing, and stretching them as far as we can to figure out what they are capable of, and understanding maybe where some deficiencies are. Hopefully either being able to cover those up and continue to work on them, and then being good at what you're already good at, utilizing those strengths as often as we can. Those are probably the biggest, kind of three, I guess, abstract absolutes. And then from a physical thing, obviously being in the weight room and having the ability to run are two huge things that are things that really show up on the diamond. The other thing is just the ability to control the barrel. So we do a lot of drill work, and basically all of our drills are basically putting our body in the position to know where that barrel is every time, because the more times you can land that thing on the baseball, the better it's going to turn out generally for you.
Do you have any drills? I know we're not doing this visually, but do you have any drills that you can talk about that might be easy to explain, that would be drills that would be focused on or centered on just barreling the ball?
Yeah, so the big, I guess, portion of the drills that we do, we kind of split it up into three different things. The load is a huge portion of it, and the reason I think you load is obviously there's some power aspects of it, but the ability to just organize your body and see the baseball. So we really emphasize trying to load early and control the body while we do it. The second portion of them are kind of direction drills. In order to making sure that you're having good direction towards the baseball. Obviously, it's a rotational movement when you're swinging the bat, but still have the direction going towards the pitcher as best we can. And then the last, just kind of being in that position to hit, which is really about the barrel control. So I'm a big believer that just like a pitcher's got to get his hand in the right slot, his hand in the same spot to know what the rest of the body can do, the hitter basically has the same issue, just an extension with a bat in his hand. So the lever just gets a little bit longer with basically your hand holding the bat, and you've got to know where that barrel is every single time. And so we do some drill work to where we'll kind of stop and start them and have them the ability to know where it is and get to things while providing just some different parameters. We'll speed them up, we'll slow them down, we'll move them forward, we'll move them back, we'll put heavier bats in their hands, lighter bats in their hands. Just the ability to control your body and hands, to control the barrel is really what the crux of everything we do is. There's not, for me, there's not a set way you have to do it. You watch guys on TV, I don't know if anybody looks the same. But there are some absolutes in terms of, hey, you've got to know how to control your body. You've got to know how to get the barrel of the bat to the ball on a consistent basis, and that really starts with knowing where it is throughout the entirety of the swing.
I really like a lot of those things. There's a lot of things that I'd like to talk about with you. I know we have a limited amount of time here, but I want to talk about the barrel control part of it for a little bit. Is barrel control something that when you're recruiting is an absolute skill that you need to see? Like the opposite of barrel control would be a lot of swings and misses, a lot of foul balls hit off the handle, balls capped, not finding the barrel consistently. Is that something that you specifically recruit, or is that something that you think with certain players you can help to teach them to be better at this? Or again, is that kind of an absolute that you need to find that in the recruiting process, or you're just not sure that this guy's going to have a lot of success at higher levels against better velocity?
Sure. So yeah, you would like to always think that I think this kind of works in minor league baseball as well, is if you're swinging and missing in A ball, it's probably not going to get a whole lot better in the big leagues as you work your way up. So yeah, the ability to make contact is a huge thing. And like I always tell our guys, hey, there's three things. If we can't answer these three questions, we don't need to really get to mechanics. And that's the first one is, are you on time? So have you loaded? Have you got your body in a position to actually put a good swing on the baseball? That would be number one. Number two, are you swinging at pitches that you can hit hard? So if you're chasing or you're swinging at pitches out of the zone, I can't tell you how many statistics or metrics there are, but when you start chasing balls out of the strike zone, your chances of getting a hit or hard contact go way down. And then the third thing is, are you swinging and missing? If we're not making just straight up actual contact with the ball, that's a tough thing. That's a tough thing to try and fix. So certainly when I'm recruiting, I think the big things for a hitter is I want to see some bat speed. That's generally a good indicator that maybe some power will come. And of course, the harder you hit the ball, the better chance there is of it being a hit. The other things I'm looking for is just basically, do you have an idea of where your body is at in space? When you watch, are you really hard on the front foot? Do you lay back? Do you have good takes? That's a huge thing, is how do the takes look? Just because you lay off a pitch doesn't mean you are necessarily in a good position to hit if it was there. And then I think you just kind of look for overall athleticism. Does their body move right? Is there some stiffness in it? Can they run a little bit? Do they show some strength at the point of contact? I know that's a bunch of things, but the big things I think you're looking for is how do they take pitches and how does their body move when they swing the bat? That's generally a pretty good indicator that you should be able to teach a little bit, and they can absorb the conversation that's going on, and they have the ability to continue to make adjustments.
I want to ask you something else, just as far as just kind of talking about hitters for a little while here. In your batting practice, week to week, even like month to month, could you sort of summarize in any way just how much your hitters are hitting in different ways? There's a lot of ways to hit, a lot of ways to practice your craft. So between like tee work, front toss, like short overhand BP, normal length BP, a machine that's throwing, normalized game velocity. Could you kind of break down how much your hitters generally are working in each of those areas? Just trying to, if there's someone listening to this who is either a young player who just kind of wants to hit like a college player hits, or a high school coach that wants to make batting practice better, more realistic if they have the option to have a pitching machine especially. How much do you want your guys to hit? I don't know how you want to break it down percentage-wise or swings or whatever, but can you kind of break down how much your hitters spend, how much time they spend in each of those areas?
Sure. So the first thing that we would like to try and do is, and this is something I got told, with Toronto, was you need to develop a routine. And so a lot of guys, especially high school guys, they were generally the best players on their teams or one of the better ones. And you'd like to think it came a little bit easy for them or had the ability to physically stand out. So developing routines, because the higher you get up, generally the harder it gets. And just understanding that, hey, the 0 for 4 day is going to happen, the 4 for 4 day is going to happen, and having the ability to stay consistent with whatever it is that you do every day to get your work started is a huge factor. So whether that means you need to stretch more, roll out, kind of get your eyes or mind in the right spot, or the ability to start, as you mentioned, on a tee or front toss, or whatever it is that gets you going. I think really individualizing that routine is a huge first step for everybody that walks in the door for us. The second thing is I try to individualize kind of the way BP works and stuff like that. Is, our guy that hits on our 3-hole probably doesn't need the same thing that's a young guy trying to fight for playing time. They need different things. They need different stimulus. And they need, different thoughts and approaches and stuff like that. So it's a little bit easier to get more in-depth with guys that are generally older and have some at-bats under their belts. And then the younger guys, just really trying to get them in the right mindset to be consistent. That's probably the biggest thing is to be consistent when you're younger. And then once we kind of get older, have the ability to be able to absorb more of the finer points and understanding a little bit more of the intricacies of the game. As far as fall stuff, I really want to challenge them. I really want to make it as hard as I can on them. Once they get kind of those first couple weeks in a normal fall system, first couple weeks under their belt, kind of talk about basic stuff with everybody. And then I really want to challenge them. So we use hack attacks quite a bit. I'm a big fan of offset BP, both sides of it, with the hack attacks. And then I want to make, probably once to twice a week, I want to make that machine the best arm they're going to see. I think the more you can challenge them early, the better, not only for their eyes and body awareness, but to see if we can make adjustments without having to say anything. So the ability of, are you just going to continue to get beat the same way, or are you going to make the adjustment on your own? And that's honestly, as a coach, that's kind of what you're looking for, is the ability to have some awareness of, man, I keep having this happen, and how can I fix it on my own? That's a huge thing to watch. And unfortunately, it takes a little bit of time sometimes, but just having the ability to watch guys and watch how they react to failure, watch how they react to success when they do finally get it. Do they stick with it? Do they have the discipline to continue to do it? That's kind of stuff I want to watch the whole time. And then as we get into the spring, it becomes a little bit more of a feel good. I just want to make sure we're right and operating at our highest level. Mix in, the occasional hard day, probably maybe once a week, but really just want to make sure that they're operating at full capacity as often as they can in the spring. But that fall time is a real challenge time of how much can we stretch you, how much can we show what you're capable of doing, and then in the spring, basically, how often can we repeat what we were just able to get out of you.
So I imagine in the fall, especially for new guys in the first year of the program, they experience probably a good bit of failure, probably a lot more than they're used to, because like you said, most of the first-year players on the team, particularly high school guys, they're coming from, summer ball, I think maybe levels the playing field a little bit, but especially in high school ball or even in summer ball, if you're you're going to be a good Division I player. Typically, you're the best or one of the best guys on the field every day. And I would imagine that the struggles as a high school player are still different than the struggles they're going to experience when they get on campus with you. How do you combat that? Pushing guys and kind of stretching them and stretching what they're capable of, and they're trying to maybe quicken their learning curve, but also not let them fall into a hole where they just totally lose confidence and kind of lose what made them who they were in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Is it's a balance. It's definitely a balance of, you're trying to stretch them as much as we can, and there is a good bit of failure at times, but also reminding them that like, hey man, you're here for a reason. We brought you here. We think you're going to be a good player and contribute either immediately or down the line, and just constantly reminding. And there's a mix in of some feel good days and chances for success and stuff, but trying to find that success comes in a variety of ways. So if that's in an inter squad and you just get the runner in from third with less than 2 outs, like, that's celebrated. That's a good thing, and understanding that it may, you didn't hit the ringing double off the wall, but hey, you got the job done, and opening their eyes up to, hey, success isn't just in a batting average. That's a very fleeting statistic, and that will, you can leave the ballpark feeling like Mike Trout when you're 3 for 4, and you can leave the ballpark feeling like you haven't played since T-ball if you're 0 for 4. But that kind of stuff, trying to get that out of their heads and trying to understand that you just have to execute whatever is in front of you to the best of your ability as often as you can. That's the big thing that you're trying to do, because you're not going to get hits all the time. I will never ask our guys to get more hits. I think that's a difficult thing that you can't control. You're just trying to put yourself in as good a spot as you can every single instance. And the other thing, with the fall of trying to make adjustments is we want to let them do what they're capable of doing. So we don't make a lot of adjustments, especially that first fall that guys come in for the first time. Is, to your point, we brought them in for a reason. We want to see if maybe something that's a little unorthodox or something that, hey, we don't know if this will work or not. Well, we need to see if it's going to work against college players. I can't tell you how many times, we brought guys in thinking, oh, man, we may need to make a change here. But the inter squads roll around, and that guy's hitting 380 on the fall. And so, man, it looks like it's going to work for him. I know I definitely had a lot of deficiencies as a player that if I were coaching, I'd probably sit there and go, ooh, man, that needs to get cleaned up. But it worked enough. And so I think just letting them develop on their own as much as you can, trying to almost be, bumpers in a bowling alley. I want to get them down to the right, to the pins as fast as I can, and just kind of be, parameters for them. I don't want to force them down the lane the exact way I want to. Everybody will get down there, but just understanding that everybody's got their own path.
You mentioned batting average being a fleeting statistic. When you're evaluating your offense, maybe at the end of the fall or end of the spring, are there any statistics that you particularly like that you feel like give a good, accurate representation as just to how individuals performed, how the overall team offense performed? Like, are there any stats that you, in your heart, for you as a hitting coach, that are more important than others, or ones that you focus on that you do like, that you think are pretty meaningful?
Yeah, I think runs created is a huge thing. And obviously that's a little bit dictated on maybe where you're at in the lineup in terms of RBIs or runs scored. But, that's what the game is predicated off of, is can you score more than the other team on that particular day? And so, heck, that's what all the major league stuff is predicated off of, is runs created and runs saved. And so, just RBIs and runs. Are you actually scoring? Are you actually driving runs in when there's opportunities to do so? Those are the two probably biggest things. I think some other things that, I don't have any other statistical, evidence that backs this up, but kind of strikeouts. Try to make sure that extra base hits are at least half of your strikeouts. I think that's providing production. If you have 60 strikeouts and you only have 15 extra base hits, well, we need to figure out how to either get more production out of the bat, or we got to cut down on strikeouts and give ourselves a better chance to do so. I think those are probably the two biggest things. And then, OPS has been the big number that a lot of organizations look to. I think that's a big one too. I think you're a really good college player for that particular season if that OPS is above 900. I think that's you're providing some extra base hit ability or some high average, and you're getting on base as well. Those would probably be the three biggest things that I would look at.
I like asking that question just because I think people get caught up looking at the wrong things too much and think that some certain things are important when maybe they're not as important as something else. So to me, it's a good question, and it's something I'm certainly interested in. Now, for people that would look at RBIs, I know we only have a minute or two left here, Nick. For people that look at RBIs and say, well, that's circumstantial. It depends where you're sitting in a lineup. It depends on a lot of stuff. It's like anybody can have 100 RBIs in a big league season hitting fourth for a good team. Like, how would you just rebut that argument and just say that, the RBIs is actually a pretty important stat and something that you think is a reliable stat?
Yeah, so I think, when you look at RBIs, some of the guys that walk up to the plate these days are in an RBI situation every time they step up to the plate, whether there's nobody on or there's a guy on first or second or third or what have you. So I think the game has changed a little bit to where, a lot of guys, not just the big physical ones, are able to hit home runs and doubles and all that stuff. So I think that would probably be the first thing. And then the second thing is, baseball, kind of like life, is what you make the most of your opportunities. So when there are chances to have guys in scoring position, second and third, or maybe the ability to not even do it with a hit, can you come up in big moments? Because there's such a difference in hitting upper 10, up 10 or down 10 and getting a double, or hey, when there's a guy on first and second, 2 outs, can you hit the double then? There's such a big shift in that, and so. That's why batting average and some other statistics, although they're a piece of the puzzle, they're maybe not the biggest piece of the puzzle. It's coming in the clutch when you have opportunities to do so, is really, to me, one of the more telling things. It's a lot easier to pitch or hit or what have you, or play in non-pressure situations. But if you're playing this game and you're playing it for long enough, that's what everyone wants to do, is be in the pressure situation. That's the playoffs. That's postseason. That's everything. That's when everything's magnified. And so the ability to come up when those opportunities are presented is probably a pretty good indicator of where you're at as a player at that current moment.
So awesome. One more quick question for you before we wrap this up. Is there anything that you see right now, either that you see on the travel ball circuit or even on social media, that you think is a little bit of a misconception for young hitters? If someone listening to this, a parent listening to this, or a high school coach, that either like on social media or again in travel ball, that this may be being pushed as being really important, whether it's having a certain kind of swing or a certain kind of something in mechanics or a certain statistic or just anything that you wish that you could just kind of speak to young players and say, hey, that's not quite as important as you think it is, and this, you should be focusing more on the stuff that we just spoke about.
Yeah, so I think training and maybe remote training has become much more prevalent than it ever has. And I think a lot of that is really, really good. I can't tell you how many guys I've watched, play a game or send in a video or something, and then 9 months later they've made a huge jump, and you're like, wow, that is really impressive. And so kids of all ages, and I'm talking about high school kids and some junior college kids, so in the 16 to 20 range, are making huge strides very, very quickly, and it's impressive to see. I think velocity is obviously a huge indicator on the pitching side of possible success. I don't think that's a new phenomenon for anybody, but just the ability to repeat things is probably a big thing on the pitching portion of things. That's probably the biggest thing that I would say maybe gets undervalued is, hey, that's awesome that 92 is in there, but if we throw one in our life and everything else is 87, we need to find out how to repeat the 92. That's the biggest thing to me, and it's an ongoing journey every single time. And then for hitting and stuff, I think remembering that just good line drives are always, that they never go out of style. I always say line drives in the middle of the field are like running the football. It works in every weather condition, anytime, any place. It always works. And so I think just remembering that is a good thing. There's an old adage that I think scouts and pro ball has used, that power normally comes later for a good hitter, and I think just remembering that is that's probably still true. Is that line drives and good solid contact consistently is really the most important thing you can do as a hitter. Power will come as you get stronger. Power will come as you learn to manipulate the strike zone and learn to manipulate the barrel a little bit more, catching out in front a little bit more. But just good, solid contact and hitting balls on a line consistently is going to catch a lot of people's attention and ultimately give you the best chance to be successful as long as your baseball career will last.
Really good stuff here. This is Nick Zaleski, everybody. He's the associate head coach and hitting coach at McNeese State, a Division I school in the Southland Conference, who is certainly making great strides forward with Coach Zaleski as a hitting coach and with Justin Hill. I can't wait to see what you guys do the rest of the spring. I appreciate you very much spending the time on the podcast today. You guys are in the middle of the season, which is always a great sacrifice to spend this kind of time on here. So Nick, thank you so much. I appreciate your time very much.
Thank you. Hopefully we can do it again, and it's after a postseason run this year.
That would be great. I look forward to that. Thank you, and best of luck.
Thank you.